Good morning, everybody. Hyvää huomenta. And I'm so glad to be here today with you. We are facing many challenges, not only technical ones, not only human-related ones, but also huge societal challenges. Of course, this is the day that we are thinking, what are the policies that we are making for the future of education and training in Europe? And for that reason, we have at the European Commission Joint Research Center. It's a science and knowledge service with the goal and mission to support EU policy making with independent evidence, with the idea that we work, research, evidence cycle throughout all policy making. In that role, I am here to tell you about the new update of digital competence framework. In my talk, I will present the framework because there might be somebody who's still not aware of all the little details. After that, I will dive in, really spend quite a lot of time explaining to you how we came to this update, what was the process, and give you really concrete examples what's in here. After that, we will have a little social break. You were told already about the online means, and here you will be able to talk in person with each other next to you. So be prepared for that on top of the social media. At the second part, I will elaborate a little bit more about this idea of building ecosystems and how open standards in general can facilitate this, and what is the role of something like the DigComp framework in all this. I will give you a little snapshot of the research that we are doing behind the scenes, also to help policy making and our digital targets of 80% of European citizens having at least basic digital skills by 2030. And then at the end, concluding remarks. So let's go ahead. We have an agreed definition of digital competence in Europe, and this is something that came as a part of the policy process. There's a council recommendation on key competencies that already came out at 2006. One of the key competencies, one of the 8, is digital competence. And now our definition says it involves confident, critical, responsible use of and engagement with digital technologies for learning, for work, and for participation in society. So it's a pretty wide range of things. And what is important to remember that by definition, competence involves not only operational skills, but there's also the component of knowledge, and importantly, also attitude. I will come back to this when we talk about the content of the update. In this policy, the policy statement, the definition was operationalized into DigComp framework already in 2013. We defined 5 areas, which are information and data literacy, communication collaboration, digital content creation, safety, problem solving. Problem solving being something that goes across, of course, all the other competencies because it is transversal and you need it in many of the different areas. Those 5 areas include 21 competencies. What you see here are the names of the competencies, their titles, and we additionally have descriptors for that. This is what we call the conceptual model. The conceptual model has been the same, pretty much the same since the beginning, but what we are doing with the updates, we are refining what we mean by that. Why do we have this kind of frameworks? This kind of reference frameworks at the European level, they become important because they really identify and describe the key components, in this case, of what we mean by digital competence. This is the model, like I said, the areas and the competencies, their descriptors. Additionally, we can add additional information to this, like proficiency levels. In DigComp, we have defined 8 proficiency levels that can be collapsed into 4, if you wish, from a very foundational level, intermediate, advanced, and highly specialized skills. Those are not professional skills, but they are really when you specialize deeply into something. These are really there to help guide curriculum development and help assessment processes. Two very important parts. And also, third, thinking about the ecosystem, of course, we need certification there. The very important part of this has been really that they give us a vision. What do we mean by digital competence? Where do we want to go? And what is it that when I'm talking about it, you also understand what I really mean. And this has been very important at the European level by stakeholders, different stakeholders, policymakers, researchers, really implementers in school curriculum, the teaching staff, anybody. They all become aware of the same vocabulary, same goals, and through that, this really enables the sharing of good practices. This is how we do this. This is how we have implemented it. These were our problems. This is how we overcame. So that's one really the key let's say, good benefits of using this kind of reference frameworks. And of course, they help us also monitor as we go along. And we have the digital skills indicator, and I will also mention a little bit more about this. All the reference frameworks that we have been working at the European Commission at the Joint Research Center, on top of the DigComp for citizens, we have the educators one, we have also LifeComp, which is for the personal, social, and learning to learn, EntraComp, and so on. There's always very strong scientific underpinning into this. There's a wide range of desk research that we look at what other people have done, what should we bring in, on top of multi-stakeholder consultation. We work hard with everybody who's in the field so that we have a product that we can all agree on, so that it facilitates working onwards. What's important also in these reference frameworks, we keep updating them. Last time DigComp was updated in 2017, and as you know, the world is a very different place today. So what these are used for? I have here three things: policy formulation and support, and this could be at the national level. For example, here, DigComp has been already considered when creating a school curriculum, the students' digital competence. In structural planning, once it's in the curriculum, of course you start thinking, how do you plan for it? How do you train teachers? And then assessment and certification. So those also, when we are thinking about creating and building ecosystems, those things become really important factors and key elements. And just as was already mentioned by my colleague Anushka and other people, these digital skills are really high at the European Commission's agenda. Mentioned that we have a goal of 80% of adults to have at least basic digital skills by 2030. This is also measured by indicator, which is based on our DigComp framework. We will talk about that more. Here's the Digital Education Action Plan that was mentioned. Digital skills are also at the core of European skills agenda, and so on. We have now the twin transition, green and digital, where we have 20% of the funds actually to foster the digital capital and digital transition. So there are a lot of opportunities now to implement and to work towards that goal of more digitally skilled and savvy citizens. So let me, now that I've given you the outline of the DigComp framework, you know where I'm coming from, let's go and look at the scenarios and the process, how the update was created. We have a couple of scenarios here. On the left side, you can see a mobile phone screen. There's somebody doing emails, and you can see at the bottom those little boxes. By now they are omnipresent. Anywhere where you do chatting, there are already suggestions how to reply to it. All this is based on AI, and the idea that when we are using the handheld devices, it's so hard to type that it facilitates the communication. We have other scenario here, which is my photos. You know, I have a ton of photos I've taken. It's a pain to organize them. Here, again, AI can empower this kind of classification of pictures by recognizing faces in the images. Once you say, yes, this belongs to this bucket of images, the machine learns more, becomes better at classifying your content. All these are new kind of evolving technologies where citizens don't necessarily know that they are dealing with AI, but they actually are. And here we are a little bit worried about things related to privacy, things related to personal data, and safety. So these are the things that we were started to think when talking about the new update. Another emerging thing, other trend now is the smart technologies, the Internet of Things. I have here some data from Eurostat on citizens interacting with smart technologies. In 2020, it was still at the European level, about 5% of people used smart technologies, and importantly, virtual assistants, around 11%. It was very low, it was quite low then, but let's use this as a benchmark. It will be interesting to know very soon. This kind of smart technologies and Internet of Things, the idea is that they can communicate with each other. Here what I have is a robot vacuum cleaner who's actually cruising around an apartment cleaning, but also mapping the apartment using AI, machine learning, to know how to navigate from one room to another, and maybe also how to suggest some cleaning schedule for me. I'm able to use this, give commands for this robot through my cell phone. I use, again, another AI-enabled technology, voice recognition, and there I'm interacting. However, I'm also interacting with two different applications. The data is also stored in a place that I'm not necessarily aware of. Do I remember who was actually going to have access to that data and for what purpose? Imagine if I have the schedule on my phone about my alarm system, somebody also might know the floor plan, kind of my apartment. Kind of a non-important, trivial things, but when put together, that can actually be hazard. So when we started, and Uska already mentioned the digital action plan, here one of the actions, number 8, was to update the DigComp framework and think what are really the AI and data-related skills that citizens should have. So naturally, our research question became what knowledge, skills, and attitudes do citizens need to engage with AI systems in a confident, critical, and responsible way? Here, that was one part of the work, and here you can see the whole plan. We started the update using a community of practice hosted by All Digital, and I know many of you are also part of that community of practice, so I'm very glad that you are here today and grateful for your engagement. So in about a year's time, year and 3 months, we went through different steps. The scenario that you just saw, those were when we started collecting examples. Those were situations that didn't exist in 2017 when we were creating the previous update. Those were the new developments that we thought we have to keep an eye on, but we have to also think what are the new requirements for citizens. So we collected that kind of examples, not only on AI, but really on topics. Let's see here, new topics like fact-checking online content. That became huge, of course, during pandemic, but also now during the wartime. We have also a lot of things around green and sustainability aspects of interacting with digital technologies. We're streaming online nowadays all the time, and what does it mean for data streams and use of energy? resources. There's also a focus on well-being and safety. I mentioned life competencies, the resilience, possibility for people to self-regulate their own use of technologies and so on. So that was also a big area we discussed in the update. Remote work, of course, because of the pandemic, but also not only remote, but this kind of a hybrid that you do something here and the other things are online. And importantly, digital accessibility. This is not anymore something that only public bodies should take care of when they put content online. It becomes really a responsibility of everybody to be making content that is accessible for everybody. So those were the topics, and I just show you here a little curiosity. I mentioned in the previous slides about fact-checking online content, and here for the first time in Europe, we have also data from Eurostat on citizens who have used the internet in the last 3 months. If they have encountered untrue or doubtful online content, and if they checked, verified the reliability of it. And here you can see that it ranges from about 70% to about 26% in certain countries. And so you can see that we have still a lot of different scenarios in different countries, and different type of, let's say, requirements emerge. So that was also something important in DigComp, like community of practice, go together, discuss those requirements, looking at them from different parts. So this open co-creation process was important, and this is how it was implemented. Looking at the country context, talking to people, having the community of practice, discussing them together. We came up with the examples, and the examples are in this one. And let me just talk a little bit about these examples, what they are not and what they are. So here you see the DigComp conceptual model, like we already talked, all 21 competencies there. So the new update then includes about 10 to 15 examples about all these new topics that I was mentioning, fact-checking, remote work, AI systems. We have come up with 10 to 15 examples. Together, there's about 250, and these will really help updating the content, updating the school curriculum, and be on the face of today's challenges. And I'm talking about today. These are not something that, prepare us for the future in 2 to 5 years. These are really things that we should be paying attention today. So let's look at the examples in a very concrete form. What you see here is the DigComp Pentagon, the 5 areas. Here, first area, information and data literacy. Competence, evaluating data, information, and content. And here you see the descriptor. 2 important things underlined. Checking the sources, where does this information come from, and checking the content itself. What you see here are the 8 proficiency levels that I already mentioned. These were created in 2017, and they still remain the same. And the new part is here, examples of knowledge, skills, and attitude. Let me go and show you really a detailed ones. Here, knowledge 1, with the little book. Aware that AI algorithms might not be configured to provide only the information that the user wants. They might also embody a commercial or political message to encourage users to stay on the site, to watch or buy something, to share specific opinions. These can also have consequences, negative consequences. For example, reproducing stereotypes, sharing misinformation, disinformation, and so on. So here, when we think about the competence, evaluating information and content, we have to also be aware that at the background, there are these algorithms and what they are doing. So that's one of the examples. A skill knows how to analyze and critically evaluate search results and social media activity streams to identify their origin, to distinguish fact reporting from opinions, and to determine whether outputs are truthful or have other limitations, maybe economic, political, religious interest, and so on. There's a skill example. Attitude, poor things here, almost off the page, but here you can see, inclined to ask critical questions in order to evaluate the quality of online information and concerned about purposes behind spreading and amplifying disinformation. So that's an attitude. Here you already saw that we always applied certain sort of a vocabulary. When it is a knowledge example, aware of, knows about, understands. When it's a skills example, knows how to, able to do, can, and so on. And when it's an attitude, it's an example of open to, curious about, weighs the benefits and risks, and so on. So these examples, really like I already mentioned, will be helping those who update the training syllabus, content, course content, and so on. And here the guy is here, here's the commission. Look, we did this update. Now the ball is on your side. We are really looking forward to see how people actually apply our work into their ongoing content about digital upskilling and digital training. So what is also important to think is we have given only 5 to 15 examples per competence, so these are not an exhaustive list. This is not the outcomes of learning outcomes themselves, and they are not on proficiency levels. So that's an important thing. When you look at it as an example, in addition to what we already knew. This is not to create only learning outcomes based on that. Of course, they can be used for that, but there's more work. Importantly, I give another example. We worked on this idea of citizens interacting with AI systems. We have the part also that is really focusing on this. And what you saw already in the previous example, there was a little AI after some of the statements. So those are in the official list. We have an appendix called Citizens Interacting with AI Systems that has much more content. What we are aiming with this content is really to have this idea, I can't read. Yes. Citizens being aware of what AI systems do and what they don't do, and what are the benefits, what are the limitations, thank you. Skills, know how to interact with them. What we mean by that, you might be able to configure your, let's say, location online, because you don't want them to track you. We are not saying that you should actually know how, is it machine learning, or is it neural network, or any kind of specific technology. No, because we are actually thinking of this like driving a car. You can drive a car without knowing how the engine works. You follow code of conduct, you follow traffic rules, and you get there. A little bit the same analogy here. We're really, in the DigComp way, focusing on humans interacting with these new technologies. What is important here is actually the attitudes, and this is something that has really European values in it. We have here the agency. Human takes the agency. It is you who decide whether this recommendation is something that I want to act upon, or is it so that you're not just nudged or led by algorithms online. And there's also, importantly, the ethical considerations of use. We have actually spent quite a lot of time in thinking of these ethical considerations and build them into these attitude examples. And here you can see that these are in a little bit different order. Previously you saw them ordered by the DigComp, and here they are a little bit a different way. What do AI systems do, how they do it, challenges and ethics of AI, and attitudes regarding human agency and control. And here you have a longer list. I was giving you an example previously about those AI systems, my robot vacuum cleaner. And here, for example, that I'm aware that they collect multiple types of user data, personal data, behavioral data, contextual data from my home, And they create profiles, and then, for example, they might use that data to recommend you advertisement, next things, services, and so on. So here, these are the ones that are with the red. They are already in DigComp, and the other ones are additional ones, and they will help. Here we always say what competence it is related to, so they really will help people to work on it, to build it into their curriculum. So just to finish with this, we have the accessibility. We have one, the Annex 4 is actually available and accessible by screen readers. So that's good. We have 11 examples about digital accessibility there. And last, we also wanted to really highlight how these key competencies are interlinked. We have here, I mentioned already, personal, social, and learning to learn framework. We have the EntreComp framework about entrepreneurship. And after each of these, we mention which are the numbers of examples that really link these two competencies together. So here, additionally, this publication has a lot about the implementation guide, information about translation, self-reflection tools that we have, and so on. So here, I finish this part by telling about the translations. This is something that many people have asked about, and this is peculiarity of DigComp framework, that Commission has not translated it. So usually, how it happens is that the member states, it might be an institution or university, takes the translation responsibility. Here, for example, in Spain, it was the Somos Digital. It's a civic society network, and they took the relay and translated it. So we have some translations already available, ongoing translations, and they are mostly coordinated through the community of practice. So here's a link. I will share the slides later. So anybody who's interested is able to go and see. And here, for example, we have, I talked with Ebba from Sweden, and she's involved also in the translation process. So if you're interested in asking or talking about it, please do. So now we have a little social break. This is time for you to actually ask questions. But instead of asking questions to me, please turn around and talk to the person next to you. You have 90 minutes. I'm counting here. So please, what is the question you might want to ask? Just a little social break. You might want to write it down later, but there will be also questions online. But please, this is the moment for you.
Good morning. My name is Jochen Ehrenreich from Cooperative State University in Germany. I have a question about how you describe competences. First of all, DigComp Edu, and all those frameworks and the work of JRC are a great help to all of us. Thank you very much for all the work you're doing. And then my understanding is that each competence is described through knowledge, skills, and attitudes. So the competence is the overarching concept. But there are many other views as well. So if you look at ESCO, each knowledge, each skill, each attitude might be a competence on its own. So can you please elaborate on your views on this?
Yes, thank you. Very tricky one, as you probably know. So ESCO is defining the competencies actually as a learning outcome. And there's a very fine line between what we mean by learning outcome and what we mean by competence itself. How I see this is more that the competence descriptor in DigComp is very abstract. And we have actually made taking a lot of care in terms of describing it. We don't mention, for example, we talk about digital technologies. We don't talk about specific skill to use specific software. And this might be a learning outcome, to do that. But we remain like a very much more abstract level. And then when you come to these examples, They are also not learning outcomes. They are just exemplifying what do I mean by digital technologies. In this case, I was talking about citizens interacting with AI systems. They are those AI systems. Now they are examples, but they don't actually, like I said, they don't outline, they are not an exhaustive list like in EQF. The learning outcomes that they have defined are really an exhaustive list. If you have this, you have the competence. In our case, if you have those 11 things or 15 examples that we say like check, 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 it doesn't mean that you have the whole competence because these are just examples. The competence descriptor still remains the overarching thing. And there also what is important are the proficiency levels. And there we have also used, actually they stem from EQF. We use the 8 levels. We also have the complexity of task, and we use a little bit the same vocabulary of Bloom's taxonomy, and also importantly autonomy you gain. So those 3 things are there, and they are more like learning outcomes. And so it's a combination. You need actually all the dimensions to play this game. So it's not that easy, but yes, I can understand that there's a little bit might be confusion, but we are really trying to also from the Commission side to work together to make all this clear, you know, that it's knowledge, skills, and attitudes, also in EQF as in key competencies for lifelong learning.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I think if we took one from the audience here, we can take one online.
Yep.
So I'll read the question to you, Riina. How does the revised digital competence framework for citizens encapsulate the type of activism required for citizens to challenge and transform the type of unfair, inequitable, and socially unjust digital societies we live in today? Arguably, the uncomfortable reality is that digital technologies have amplified the forces of globalization, fast capitalism, and growing divides in our society. Therefore, in what ways does the updated framework help to develop future educators who can prepare more critical thinkers, critical consumers, and critical citizens?
Well, one thing actually I should have gone to this slide. What is important to understand is that DigComp is one of the key competencies, 8 key competencies. They are here. You can see that we have also the civic competence as one of the competencies here on the left side. And civic competence and digital competence are really interlinked. And one of the competencies in our list is, enacting citizenship through digital competencies. So in this update, we have actually looked a lot at that competence, and there were a lot of discussions within the community. There was actually a demand to have its own area about more about civic competencies, more about democratic participation in society through digital technologies, helping also the sustainable development goals and so on. So we have built in the competence 2.3. If you read the examples, it's one of the longest because there's a lot of these ideas in there. And eventually, we have to think that when you're teaching digital competence, you have to also teach civic competence and this kind of a participation. What does it mean for democracy, human rights, values that are important in at the EU? In a way, they should come through that competence, and they should come also through transversal, other transversal competencies that are critical thinking, creativity, that are through all key competencies. But that's definitely an area, and this is a really good question, and I look forward to, 2-3 years from here when we start working on a DigComp update 3.0. How does this play in? Because this is so important in the future. Thank you.
Okay. You want to proceed now, so maybe...
Yes.
Okay.
So now that you got a little break and you were able to breathe, let me just finish with my slides and talk to you a little bit more about how do we encourage uptake and what do we do from the Commission side. Already 2018, we put out this guidebook called DigComp into Action. In that one, we looked at different cases, 38 different cases, and we described them in order to share good practices, show how these are being used. These are in these areas like policy making, instructional planning, and also certification and assessment. We have also looked a lot at the digital competence at work. We have two very interesting, one being the case studies and the other one being an implementation guide. And here, for example, at the case studies, you can see that the case studies look really, they are in the labor intermediaries, but looking at the students in initial education, non-employed, employed people, and then other target groups. So we try to actually see how DigComp plays out, not only in educational institutions, but also at work, because we know that there's a need for digital upskilling. The job descriptions are changing all the time, and digital is one of the keys. So sharing good practices is one. Another one is making these tools available. Many of you maybe know that we have a self-assessment kit for digital competence. It has 83 items. It's freely available for anybody. We have tested it in 3 different countries. Two different countries. And this is something that anybody can take and apply in order to make this kind of self-reflection. What kind of competencies do I have? Where are the gaps? Where should I go next? Idea. We have also created this for educators, DigComp Edu, it was mentioned already, and there we have an online tool called Selfie for Teachers. Also the same idea, you can self-reflect, you can think what are my professional goals in the future, and so on. We have also, of course, the Selfie for Schools, and these tools are really implementations of frameworks and encourage the uptake. In all these areas that I already mentioned, they are being the key components, key components of a digital ecosystem. And the idea is being that in any digital world, ecosystem for education and training, open standards can really facilitate this building of ecosystems where we have learning materials, we have learning goals, we have assessment, we have certification that matches actually the job market. Of course, DigComp is not a standard. It is a reference framework, but it works exactly the same way in this case. It enables those who have already something, their own framework, to look what are the areas that I am lacking and update their content. And then for those who don't have something, they can take the whole framework, implement parts of it that they want. And this kind of starting to build ecosystems either with existing ones and matching the parts, calling them the names that we have defined here, using the terms and so on, the levels, it's important. And this sort of rattles down in different implementations, and at the national level, one recent interesting implementation takes place in Austria. I don't know if any of you have looked at or is familiar with the Fit for Internet here at the site here. It's a very interesting multi-stakeholder initiative in Austria where we have this network called Fit for Internet, but also supported by the ministries of digitalization and ministries of finance and finance. And this whole has built this ecosystem where we are looking at what does it mean to be digitally competent? I can check what skills I have. I have learning opportunities, and I can keep going and not missing anything. It's a very nice website, and they have very nicely bundled it together with different providers of either in a non-formal sector, adult education also. There's very good sort of a content for elderly people. They're really looking at these parts of in the society that are a little bit, have been lacking, and we also see from the data that, for example, older people have hard time with keeping up. So this is a really good example of how these kind of national ecosystems can be built, and I can't wait to see this taking place more at the European level. But there are many more examples, and also must say that Estonia has already adopted a long time ago the DigComp framework for students' digital competencies. So I just want to give you like a little behind the scene, just 5 minutes before finishing up. I already mentioned the digital skills indicator, and this is how at the EU level we are monitoring how are we advancing with our goal of 80% of citizens having at least basic digital skills by 2030. This year, we just have updated this indicator. So it's called Digital Skills Indicator 2.0, and for the first time the data comes from 2001, so we can see actually where the citizens are. Here in this graph, I have put them classified them by employees, self-employed, family workers, students, and unemployed. Here you can see at the European level, you can see we are around 50, 50 in general, but you can see the spread is huge. Opportunities are not actually rattling down equally in society. When we look at the unemployed people, there's much less skilled people there, and skilled people, by this we mean those who do digital activities. So let me break it down a little bit here with this update that is here indicated by red. We have added a new area in it. It used to be only 4 of the DigComp areas, but now we have a 5th one, safety. In all these areas, you need to have at least one activity. So we are talking about skills, activity, knows how to do, has done something, and to be at the basic level. Here you can see these are the indicators. These variables come from the Eurostat's ICT household survey. It's just to show you the ones in black are the competencies that we are now looking at in this new indicator. It's 12 out of 21 competencies. And importantly, we also check the psychometric properties. This is some discussion that I've had with many of the colleagues previously. Is digital skills indicator really a tool that measures what is it supposed to measure, the digital competence, and does it do it in a reliable way? And here, what we have looked at the whole, using the data from 2021, we have done some analysis, and it showed that really it is this multidimensional model that we have for DigComp. It really fits the data. And it shows that the indicator actually measures 5 distinct, although correlated areas that can be reduced in one single indicator. Here we have this 2-factor, let me see, now I forget the name of this model, but I will tell you when you come and talk to me, where we can see the correlations. Of course, you don't see anything properly, but we will publish this paper hopefully by the end of the summer as a background paper methodological note. So this is, I'm glad to see that this model of DigComp is also supported by empirical evidence that we have collected. And so it's a good representation of the DigComp framework, and the reliability of the overall indicator is also high. So this is just to tell you that we are really looking at the many different things in this digital skills indicator, the background, to make sure that the data that comes out is the best possible one. Also to help member states really to get going with this work. Here what you can see, another novelty of this year's indicator, we have made a breakdown. We don't talk about here's the at least basic level, is these 2 together, but also those who have 4 areas out of 5. those who have 3 areas out of 5, those who have 2 areas out of 5. So this will help, let's say, member states, will help educational institutions look, the training providers look, where do we need to put all our efforts? It's interesting to see that we have actually 17% of people who have 4 areas out of 5 DigComp areas. So they are almost there, and many of them are actually lacking the safety competence, which is the new one that we are measuring this year. So this can also be used to say we need more education and training and really focusing on this idea of data privacy, personal data privacy, and safety and security online. This data is available for everybody, and of course, as a researchers, I would really encourage you to look at it and go to the website. We have, you can choose, you can choose the level here, like I was saying, you want to see those only with low levels, and you can choose the demographics. There's a huge amount of demographics possibilities to allow you to look at the data and use it for research purposes to help you get going. So I hope that this new timeline, starting from 2021 onwards, will also prove to be an interesting source for researchers in the future. We collect the data every second year. So with that, I will just give a few concluding remarks, and then we can have another social break and more questions, and you can discuss. And just to conclude that, with from the part of the European Commission, digital competence framework is just but one tool that we have. There's a ton of other things, like Anushka was mentioning the hub, but we have also this year focused on many other actions. Many of you might have heard about this structured dialogues with member states on digital education and skills, and this is going on over summer and towards the end of the year. There's also council recommendations coming out, to one on enabling factors for digital education and another one for improving the provision of digital skills through education and training. Both very relevant also to you, and I am sure that many of you have been part of these consultations already. There's also coming out some guidelines for educators, one on AI and data use in education, and another one on digital literacy and how to tackle disinformation. And these 2 last ones are coming out really at the beginning of the school year, around October. So with that, I add a little personal note. I can't resist. This place, Tallinn University, brings many memories. And here, if you look at the date, it is the same date, June 20, 2006. And the picture is Mark Lampere, a little bit younger. And here we were starting our Learn 2006 PhD summer school. So I was also part of that summer school, and I actually dug out Flickr. Maybe some of you remember Flickr. And with the tag Learn IP 2006, there are pictures of us in the sessions here. We were in Haapsalu also, and a lot of social moments. So with this idea of lifelong learning and the journey continuing, I look forward for the next 16 years. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.